From NBC New York, DOJ threatens NYPD with lawsuit over sidewalk parking. And before we get into that, if you've seen any of my old videos, there's more than 1,000. Feel free to go ahead and check them out. My name is Eric. This channel is called Report and Opine, where we highlight most of the coastal elite chaos. Please subscribe. Please like, comment, share, all that stuff. I'm begging you.
I'm begging you, please. Come on, please.
It's free for you. It helps me a lot. But if you also want to help me and spend money, you can go over to Amazon.com and buy my book, New York City 2020 Gotham Unglued. Anyhow, the regular practice of the NYPD parking its cars in the middle of the sidewalk around precincts has caught the attention of the federal government. Can you believe that? Once again, the federal government is after NYPD because they're just not crazy enough. We know by now that the NYPD are quite literally the henchmen of the feds, communist Warren Wilhelm, Bill de Blasio. It never ends, but as the city devolves into absolute chaos, they're worried about where the cops are parking the cars. And we see the same thing in California. No matter how bad the crime gets, no matter how many businesses flee the city, they are going to talk about police misconduct. And Pamela Price, Alameda County DA, is going to bring a case against cops for a man who passed in custody that the former DA wouldn't even bring because the autopsy said he died of an overdose.
According to an autopsy report, his death was caused by the toxic effects of methamphetamine, with the stress of the altercation, morbid obesity, and alcoholism contributing. Under the previous DA, Nancy O'Malley, an investigation cleared the officers, but under Price, an investigation was reopened in 2023.
Absolutely insane, right? This is something you do if the city's working at 85%. I mean, it's a complete cesspool, and they're worried about where the cops are parking the car. The U.S. Department of Justice issued a letter to the police department last month warning that illegally parking in that manner is a violation of the American with Disabilities Act. Of course, they're gonna, it just never ends. So in Oakland, the police department, which is in complete shambles, was investigating perceived racist Twitter post from 12 years ago.
We're going to do every single thing that we can to get to the bottom of this. We have to have people here at the Oakland Police Department that love Oakland, that care about the community. We cannot have people here who hold racist, hateful views serving our community. And so we give the community our word that we're going to do everything that we can and look deep into our practices to make sure that wherever the gaps are, that they get fixed, and they get fixed immediately.
And now they're worried about the Americans with Disabilities Act. Are you going to clean up the streets? Are you going to let the wheelchairs roll over all the junkies and tents and poop and all that? What is actually happening? And now, of course, I'm conflating San Francisco and New York, but it's the same. They quite literally are reading from the exact same playbook. In the event we determine that we cannot secure compliance voluntary to correct the deficiencies identified in this letter, Attorney General may initiate a lawsuit pursuant to the ADA. The letter from the U.S. Attorney of the Southern District, Damian Williams, read. That letter dated March 29 said the NYPD had 2 weeks to respond to the DOJ to indicate that the police department was interested in resolving the concerns. We are reviewing the letter. How about you just claim you're a squatter? Put your car wherever you want and just say, oh, I'm squatting now. And then you get all the rights. I guess they kind of backtracked on that because it was just too much of a problem. And that's weird how in the last month or so, it's just been nothing but squatter stories. A month or so before that, it was nothing but plane collapsing, plane malfunction stories. I'm not really sure how this is happening. We are reviewing the letter, an NYPD spokesperson told News 4, and it's just a corruption race to the bottom, right? The NYPD is arguably as corrupt as they come. Right? I mean, I know this firsthand, but they want to, the feds, right? I mean, and New York City has plenty of problems. I'm going to look at that very shortly, but there's plenty of problems. And just recently, just in the past week or so, it's absolutely nonstop. And they should not be worried about where the cops are parking the cars, because are you going to park it on a sidewalk outside of the Times Square station when a migrant is beating up a cop? I mean, this just doesn't make any sense. According to Williams' office, the police department's frequent obstruction of sidewalks and crosswalk near precincts, combined with the amount of time spent blocking public areas, has made the city's pedestrian grid not readily accessible and usable to individuals with disabilities. Or if you have a disability, I'm sorry, well, I guess you're living off the government anyways. But look, I don't want to be rude, but bro, you have to make like $250,000 to live in New York City. So you want me to believe that, all the train stations, like, they put up a little sign when they have an elevator, and I promise you don't want to get in that elevator. But who are we kidding, bro? This is only designed to further demasculate, embrace the cops. There's nothing more to it than that. A recent study, this letter points out, found that 91% of all precincts throughout the 5 boroughs see police vehicles blocking public sidewalks or crosswalks. It's the same thing with the BLM protesters. They got paid out. And, I at this particular point, I hope I'm wrong, but I just can't really be convinced that this is not an intentional, act of war. The DOJ outlined a number of remedies it encouraged the NYPD to implement in order to comply with the ADS. Those including enacting a new parking policy for city vehicles, modifying training programs for traffic enforcement officers, establish a complaint system in which the public can report illegal. Okay, look, I'm sure nobody likes the parking authority, right? If you have a car in New York City, you're, I guess, maybe kind of glad to hear this. But there is a difference between a regular guy who's just double parking and a cop who's actually, look, again, this is crazy. The New York City Police Department officers are not the best. But you have so many things ahead of where they're putting their cars to worry about. But they just want to nitpick at everything to make sure that the city completely collapses. And we have this here. Of course, maybe this could be considered a little bit more important. New York City high school soccer game canceled after a group of about 30 migrants refused to leave the field, even after cops show up. So the cops show up and the migrants say, "We don't care, we're not going anywhere." And as I understand it, the high school kids were kind of scared for their safety because the migrants, of course, have sort of a menacing air about them. A high school soccer game at a public field in East Harlem was canceled after a group of migrants refused to leave. I directly asked them to leave, and some of them kind of took it into consideration. But then 4 or 5 of them said, "You know what? F it. We don't have to leave. We can do whatever we want." But the cops can't do whatever they want, right? And I'm not saying anybody should be able to do whatever they want, but it certainly shouldn't be the illegals. About 40 boys from both teams showed up on Sunday, April 14th at Thomas Jefferson Park for the 5 p.m. match. The Kickers were set to face off against FA Euro New York. But a group of about 30 men who appeared to be African migrants and spoke little English wouldn't leave even when how is that possible? How do the cops not have more power than the migrants? Is it because the federal government is telling them that they can't even park their cars to go stop these migrants? Is that why? To resolve the conflict, the cops asked to see a copy of the club's team's permit. Yeah. Okay, so when the migrants won't leave, you have to ask the high schoolers for their permit to play soccer. How, you didn't ask the migrants for their permits? You didn't ask the migrants for their ID? You just gave them a room and board and a debit card and let them do whatever they wanted, run roughshod over you while the cops walk on eggshells and can't park their cars? When you show up with 2 teams in uniform, a ref, 2 coaches, usually nobody asks to see your permit. And you shouldn't. You shouldn't have to, right? I can almost guarantee that they didn't ask the migrants for one little piece of paperwork in their native tongue. And what? By the time Johansson's assistant was able to forward a copy of the Kicker's permit, the game had been delayed 30 minutes. Even when the game is over, you don't know if they're waiting for you. So even if the cops kick them off, it may not be over. So we all agreed this is too dangerous. So the migrants are terrorizing high school kids. It's too dangerous. The high school soccer teams have to come up with their permit, right? Just like the New Yorkers had to come up with their paperwork to go eat at Applebee's. But the migrants are allowed to run roughshod and they get room and board and debit cards. And there's more. There's more. Man reading book stabbed 9 times by stranger in New York City in a Port Authority bus terminal. A man reading a book at Manhattan's Port Authority bus terminal early Monday was stabbed and wounded by a crazed stranger in an unprovoked attack. Police source said the 65-year-old victim was sitting reading a book in the Greyhound area. Look, it doesn't even matter. It's another violent attack. And this goes on and on and on, right? For several years now, right? The subway stabber, they're finding body parts on the 4 train. But the federal government is worried about where the police park their cars. And again, I'm not saying they should have free reign to put their cars wherever they want, but there's far more important things. And this is just a tactic for them to continue the destruction of New York City. I mean, this is movie villain stuff, right? This is real life Gotham level stuff. And here's the last bit. Adams' administration confirms identity of New York City's extreme weather czar after months of mystery. So we can only assume that this is another corruption plan. So for some reason, there's an extreme weather czar, right? Like a climate change bureaucrat that Mayor Adams didn't even want to tell you about. Likely because it is completely corrupt, right? I mean, you're going to pay somebody to track the weather? Why don't you just go work for the local news station? What are you talking about? Mayor Adams' office has confirmed that City Hall Chief of Staff, Camille Joseph Varlek, is the administration's extreme weather coordinator, ending months of mystery over who's running the top storm response post. The mayor's team relayed Varlek's new assignment in a communication to City Comptroller Brad Lander's office last month, according to a new audit from Lander's office released Monday. Lander's audit, which scrutinizes the Adams administration's response to September's tropical storm Ophelia, doesn't make clear when Varlek started acting in the coordinator role, which was created by former Mayor Bill. So in 2021, communist Bill de Blasio created a climate change bureaucrat to filter money through. And for whatever reason, Eric Adams appoints one of his staff members to that position and doesn't want to tell people for months. Why? But we should all be worried about where the cars are, where the police cars are parked, right? And again, there is a bit of a double standard, right? You largely have to play by the rules, in parking in New York City is absolutely impossible.
Crazy? What are you doing? Hey! You're stealing my space!
George, wait, you don't know who this guy is? People kill for a parking space in this city.
No. He's not getting away
No,
with this.
George!
Hey, what are you doing? I think I'm parking my car.
But there's one thing for a population of 8 million people, more than that now with all the illegals, but they can just park their scooters wherever they want. It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So while all that's happening, violent crime, they're worried about, and they're appointing a climate change czar for what, right? Just to make sure, I hope they are bleeding the taxpayers dry because they know their reign might be over. We all saw the clip. We all saw a big DJT at the Harlem Bodega.
Good, everything good?
Look at this. That's her. That's her. Camille Joseph Varlek at a briefing on the city asylum seeker response. Yeah. Whatever. Asylum seekers. Absolutely ridiculous. Controversy over the extreme weather czar post first mounted in the aftermath of Ophelia when the Daily News reported that the post had been sitting vacant since it should be vacant right now. A meteorologist? What is she gonna do? My mind is boggled. Okay, this is the person. Look, and I don't want to make snap judgments based on appearance, but this is who Eric Adams appointed to track the weather. Apparently, this is just ridiculous. Okay, and while all this is happening, obviously stores are still closing. Crime is through the roof. Migrants are running roughshod. They're cooking up food on hot plates in the hotel. It's a complete and total baby mail, right? Everything is locked up. It's behind glass. And if you try to defend yourself, you, of course, will become the criminal. Meanwhile, in Harris County, Texas, in Houston, Texas, they are tracking they are tracking a thief who stole $33 worth of merchandise